Okay, I think we are currently live over on YouTube. It looks like, if my team's on here, it looks like the Facebook feed I don't think is going through. So we may need to share from YouTube over onto Facebook because it looks like it says it's been, the stream's been disconnected for some reason. So there you go. Super fun today. So hello for those of you who are watching me over on YouTube. Usually we're also live on Facebook, but it looks like Facebook doesn't want to work today. So go figure. So we're just going to be live on YouTube today. Let me see if I can do anything else here. Thanks for your patience, everyone. I'm just going to make sure. Let me see if I can get this to work real quick. It does not seem to want to let me, so we're just going to go with it, and we're just going to, let's see. Hang on just one second. Sorry, everyone. Remove. Okay. And then I'm going to try to re-add because I would love to get my Facebook description. Oh, goodness. Okay. Apologies, everyone. Just trying to get this working this morning. We are, I think it might be working. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. Okay, I think I'm live on Facebook too. I don't know. I had to delete it and re-add it. So hopefully it's working. Go figure. I'm also home right now. My kids are home because I live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and we have had a big, more of an ice storm than a snowstorm. And so some of you have seen some of the pictures of Nashville on the news. It is starting to thaw a little bit, thankfully, but my kids are still out of school probably for the full week. They're at least out through tomorrow. I have a feeling they're going to be out on Friday as well. We don't deal very well down here with ice and snow. That's not really our forte. So that is, here we go. Okay, good. Cool. Awesome. It's working on Facebook now. Yay. I'm proud of myself. Very proud of myself for making that work. Okay. Technology, y'all. So today I'm excited for this show. So this is Power Numbers. For those who haven't watched it before, this is the monthly live show that I do. This is fully live. And this is where I get to talk about things that are going on right now, right? So these are more topical things around small business, things that are in the news, maybe any kind of new, acts that are being passed by Congress, how they could impact small business. So I wanted to do this because I do a ton of content over on YouTube, but it's hard to kind of react in more real time. So that's why I like to do these monthly live shows. They're typically like today's on the last Wednesday of every month. So make sure that you're subscribed on the YouTube channel. That's the best way to stay informed, to make sure that you don't miss these. And we also have a way that you can be submitting questions as well for me to answer at the end of these. So what we typically do in Power Numbers is news, to-dos, and cues. Those are our three sections that we are going to talk through today. And I actually am going to jump straight on into news because there's a lot to talk about, y'all. Okay. So there's a lot going on in the news cycle right now. I don't know about you, but I've done a decent amount of doom scrolling over the past few days. And so the news cycle has been heavily talking about what is going on right now, specifically in Minnesota. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about immigration enforcement in general. And I want to talk about it, though. There's a lot of different ways, people are talking about this online. However, one thing I have not seen is more discussion of how we got here and what we do from here in terms of from a monetary and budget perspective. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. How did this happen? What do we see going into the future? And I'm going to show you, first I want to flash back real quick before we kind of get into all of it. I want to flash back to last July. And last July, if y'all have been around for a while, you know what happened in last July. The One Big Beautiful Bill was passed by Congress and signed into law. Now, I've done lots of content on the One Big Beautiful Bill. I specifically did a video last July, right after it was passed, that talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I do believe that there are certain things that were actually positive in this bill. There were a lot of different things in there, but for small business owners, I think there were a few things that were positive. The making the qualified business income deduction permanent, for one, is probably the one that has the biggest impact on most small business owners that I know. But there's a lot in there that actually was beneficial. There were some things that were not so beneficial, and then I also had a section called the ugly. And I'm going to show a clip from that video because I think it's important to kind of flash back. It gives some idea of how we got into this place to begin with. And you can see this video. I'm going to, my team is sharing it in the chat right now. So if you guys want to watch the full video of what I said directly after, I'm going to show you like a quick, like, minute and a half clip of this though. And there were two things that I called out, and people argued with me, and I understand people have their own opinions on this, but there were two things that I called out as what I saw as things that, probably could get ugly, right? And one of those things was around healthcare. And I projected the cost of healthcare to go up for many Americans, which has happened. Absolutely. We've seen that happening. Those, struggles are absolutely going on. And the second thing that I talked about was the increase in budget towards immigration enforcement. So I'm going to play that really quickly for you here so we can talk about how we got here and then talk about what's going on right now in Congress as well, because it relates to the debates that they're currently having. So real quick, let me add this up. Let me know if you cannot hear this. Hopefully you can. And I'm going to go ahead and play it from, let's see, I think it is from 1425. Let me check my timestamp real quick. 1325. Apologies. Okay, so we're going to start. Is that right? And could be significantly impactful. And the other thing that I would put in this same category that we just want to be watching to see how this is going to play out over time and how it impacts small business is the increase in budget that is going towards immigration enforcement. And we've already seen a lot of small business owners, no matter who they employ, even when they are employing people fully legally, there are more raids showing up at workplaces, especially if you are in a profession that hires a lot of immigrants. If you're in construction, restaurant work, farming, we're seeing a lot of impact in those communities. And like I said, even if you are, right, hiring people and doing things fully legally, there's going to be more of a crackdown. You want to make sure you don't accidentally not do the paperwork that you're supposed to do with your verification of their immigration status and things like that. We're going to see more scrutiny on that type of thing. So you want to make sure you have all of your ducks in a row. And I think over the long term, we could see the impact of potentially less labor force, right? So overall, even if you're employing legal people, if we're taking a large portion of the labor force out, then there's going to be more competition for jobs, more labor shortages, and that could impact all of us eventually. And so that's just something to be aware of and to watch. That could also drive wages upwards, which you want to be able to then be planning for when you're doing your business planning. So this is something, again, people are going to have various different ideas of whether this is good, whether this is bad. However, ultimately, I'm talking about specifically for small business. This is something we need to be able to plan for and be watching. So there you have it. That's the good, the bad. All right. So I play that for a specific reason. I play that because the writing has been on the wall for a while as far as what the goals were of the administration and of, some of the things that were in this one big, beautiful bill. And we're seeing that play out in real time right now. And I want to go to actually an NPR article that I think will show you what we're talking about. I love a good chart. Y'all know this. So when we talk about the increase in immigration enforcement, like I think sometimes we lose the magnitude of money. Sometimes we're like 100 billion, like who knows, it's almost hard to figure out like relatively, what does that mean? So I love to think relatively. How does this compare to in the past? Because there have been a lot of people saying, well, it's no different than it was, 10 years ago when they were under the Obama administration and they were doing all these deportations. But I want to show you why it is different and what has changed. So really quick, let me share this screen with you. So again, this is an NPR article. My team will put this in the chat so that you can go check it out. This is how ICE grew to be the highest funded law enforcement agency. I'm actually going to try to increase this a bit so that you can see it. Okay. So let's take a look at this. It's important to say that just 10 years ago, we're talking, 2015, 2016, the budget for ICE was less than $6 billion. And over the last 10 years, it's grown to about $10 billion. So ahead of the One Big Beautiful Bill, the annual budget for immigration enforcement in the United States was about $10 billion. Okay. Here's where we can actually see graphically what happened with the One Big Beautiful Bill. All right. This is what we're seeing. This is the access to money that immigration enforcement now has. They're using this for all kinds of things. And we've heard about like the big bonuses they're giving out for recruitment and things like that. So there are more troops on the ground. They're sending them into more cities. And that's because that's where this allocation fell with the One Big Beautiful Bill. This is one issue I had with that bill. And that I flagged up a long time ago to say, this is going to have an impact on us as citizens, on us as small businesses. But I didn't really even then see like the magnitude of what could happen, right? Like at that point, I was really just thinking about how is this going to impact small business, right? The labor force, all of these things. I don't think that I had it in my head, the impact this could have even on, US citizens. So I think we have to realize that this is legislative. This came from our people who are governing us. They apportioned this amount of money. And while I think we can all agree, like when we're talking about getting the true worst of the worst, the criminals, things like that out of this country, of course we want to do that. But is that what's actually happening? And so I think it's good for us to kind of keep that critical eye of what's really going on. What is this money really going towards right now? So I'm not going to get overly like, if you guys want to know my thoughts, you can go check out my other social media platforms where I've given more specific thoughts on these matters. But I want to really keep this talking about small business and how we got here and these congressional approvals. So what this really is saying is that we got up to about $10 billion in base funding. That is already, written in, that's their normal base funding. But then they got access to this extra $73 billion that technically, actually, they can use it over 4 years. They can use it all at once if they want to. They have access to those funds now, but they can use it over 4 years. So it really is significantly impacting the money that immigration enforcement has access to, right? Which is allowing them to do these recruitment efforts and things like this. And here's, if you want to check out this for yourself, you can. So this really is playing in, like it wasn't a small increase. When we talk about, getting essentially like $100 billion close to, right? This isn't, like, oh, we're going from 80 billion to 100 billion. No. We can see it graphically on here, how much that is relative to spending. And that means that it is, as this article says, now immigration enforcement is the highest funded US law enforcement agency, the highest funded. That is a significant amount. And I think about this, and I'm a CPA. I think about where our tax dollars are going. And I do not love the fact, to be honest, I do not love the fact that things are getting more expensive for people, that healthcare is getting significantly more expensive. They said, we can't help you with your healthcare, it's too expensive. And yet, this is where our money went instead. If your healthcare premiums went up, if you were maybe qualifying for subsidies and now you're not anymore, right? Or those have been significantly limited, or your premiums went up across the board because of the knock-on effect of other people not being able to pay their health insurance. When people drop out, when healthy people decide, you know what, it's not worth it for me to do health insurance because it's gotten so expensive, that impacts premiums to the rest of us as well. So even if you're not on the ACA or anything like that, this could be coming through in your health insurance premiums. And so I see this and I say, like, is this where we want our money going? Is this what we want to happen? Especially given, yes, okay, if this was truly going to round up the worst of the worst, great. But I don't know about y'all, but I saw a couple of our citizens being the subject of immigration enforcement this month. And it's really hard for me to square that my tax dollars paid for that. And they're continuing to pay for that. And I don't agree with that. So there are my thoughts. Take them or leave them. But I just wanted to show how budget affects what we see in real time, right? So next, this kind of leads me to the next discussion here, which is really about what's going on in Congress. So there is discussion right now around the next funding bill. We've been here before. We know how this goes, right? Like, the next funding bill, is the government going to shut down? It's become like a whole thing at this point, where this is like the normal thing, right? We have something that we're fighting over, and there's a potential government shutdown looming over funding. I think that battle, maybe, people are seeing the tides turn. Our Congress people are seeing how the tides are turning. And I think there is a mega increase in the chance that we do walk into another full or partial government shutdown starting as soon as this weekend, because they are supposed to agree on the next funding bill by Friday. That is their deadline. And if they don't, then we're going to be in another situation where we have a full or partial government shutdown. And now, because of the outrage of what's going on, and people being unhappy about what immigration enforcement is doing out there, they're wanting to pull back some of the funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And so I fully foresee this being something that happens. So let me show you this article as well, which my team it's another NPR article, which my team just shared. So this article, here we go. This is the right one. Yep. So this article talks about what's happening right now and how the conversation has changed, right? So there's a $1.3 trillion spending package that needs to happen to keep a lot of the government up and running. And now what's going on? Last week, all but 7 House Democrats voted against the funding bill covering Homeland Security, which includes money for immigration, customs enforcement, and customs and border protection. So there were 7 House Democrats that actually voted for it. Some of them now have wanted to reverse their vote because they said, well, we didn't really see it as a referendum on what's happening with immigration enforcement. Okay. And now the Senate has to vote on it. And I can absolutely see a situation where they make this another one of those issues. Now, we'll see how it ends up, right? How do these if they dig in, how does it end up? But you may be curious. So again, the deadline is Friday. They need 60 votes for it to pass. And what the Democrats are trying to do now is to separate that out, pass everything else, and separate out the DHS funding and separately discuss that. And I'm curious to see how this plays out. It tends to be in these situations that people dig into their corners and rarely kind of come to an agreement. especially these days, but we will see how this plays out. I'll tell you how people believe that this will play out. I just saw this. I won't share this in the comments because I don't want to encourage you guys to actually be making bets on things like this. But I kind of find it interesting to watch Kalshi, I think is how you pronounce it, where you can kind of bet on all kinds of different things just to see what public sentiment is. So you can see here, this government shutdown this coming Saturday, right? Like it's been over time, it's been like a short or a 30%, blah, blah. Then it was down, right? Earlier this year, we went from like 11-ish% on January 23rd to 76.7% on January 24th. And that again is when this conversation about this ICE funding came up. So you can see the big shift. Public sentiment is saying that probably there's a decent chance that we end up in a government shutdown. Now, I did see it actually move a little bit downward this morning. Actually, since I was watching it, when I first looked, it was more like 77, 78. And now it's down to like 74. I think that is because Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went on CNBC this morning. I watched that where he seemed to signal that Trump is not interested in a shutdown, and he's trying to encourage that to not happen. I don't know exactly what that means, though. So I still think there's a very good chance we will see at least a partial shutdown starting this weekend. Okay. So that I just wanted to show you, and there's actually a few others. Let me see if it will show government. So this is the one that was government shutdown this year for 2026. So look at this. This was kind of hanging at, still you've got the full year, right? So, but we had gone down to 30s, 40%. And then all of a sudden now we're sitting at 85% of a government shutdown at some point this year. So it's like 74% that the government will shut down Saturday and 85% that it'll shut down sometime this year. I would probably not take that bet because I think that they're right. And it would not pay out enough for me to bet on that. But I don't bet on these things anyway. Okay. So anywho, that was what I wanted to talk about with all of this and the funding that we're seeing. Importantly, though, I want to actually bring this back up because this is important because people may not understand like this fight over DHS funding, right? The money that was part of the One Big Beautiful Bill, right? That extra money that we had looked at just a minute ago. Let me bring it back. This increase here in the light yellow, that's not what they're debating right now. What they're debating in this funding bill is just this orange percentage, that like 10 billion-ish in base funding that goes to the Department of Homeland Security. So even if, and this is the thing, even if Democrats succeed in getting this stripped out or, from the funding bill, and even if they get it, no funding to immigration enforcement, they still have access to all of this money that was apportioned in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So I think that's something that gets lost in this conversation. It's not like if they take it out, if they win this, it's not like all of a sudden ICE is not going to have any money to pay their people. Is it symbolic? Sure. Is it going to affect what we're seeing happen around the country? I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so, but we'll see. I think the best thing that we can do is to use your voices. If you are looking to figure out what you can do amidst all of this, there are resources at standwithminnesota.com, not just for Minnesota. Honestly, there's a lot for that. There's also resources if you want to support small businesses. One of the things that they did last week, and this showed me, it's interesting because we don't have, in Europe, they have a lot of shutdowns. They have a lot of strikes, things like that. We don't have that a lot here in the US, these economic blackouts. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, but we don't typically have them a lot. But I found it really interesting because Minnesota essentially did an economic blackout in Minneapolis. A lot of small businesses closed. Not all of them, and some of them couldn't afford to close. So there is a lot of nuance here as to what's going on. But A lot of businesses would either closed in Minneapolis last Friday, or maybe they stayed open because they wanted to be able to pay their employees, but a lot of them were doing other things in the community. And that is one thing that I have liked to see, is just the way that the community has come together in the city of Minneapolis. And that includes the small business community. By and large, from what I've seen up there, it has not been a partisan thing. It's been a community thing of people coming together to support one another. And I think that that is the beautiful part of this. We don't always have to be in our corners having partisan discussions and talking points. Sometimes we can just talk as human, empathetic, compassionate people, and that's what makes us human. And so I have been really inspired by some of the things that they did, and by Minneapolis, and just the community aspect that has been going on there. So if you haven't seen those stories, if you're only seeing the negative stories, I encourage you to go seek out those stories that show you how people are really fighting against this in every way that they can, including in peaceful ways, in community-focused ways, helping one another. I think that's what we have to focus on right now, regardless of what happens with this budget. That is the best thing that we can do, is be present with our communities, have empathy and compassion for other people, and raise our voices. So if you have interest in wanting to know what you can do from where you are, there's tons and tons of different opportunities on standwithminnesota.com. All right, y'all, let's move on to the next section, shall we? Let's come on over to the to-do section. Okay. So like I said, first to do, just kind of piggybacking off of what we've been talking about. There's a lot of to-dos listed here. If any of them, speaks to you, great. If you want to share your voice, regardless of what your voice is, I am a big proponent of people sharing their voice. Call your Congress people. There are lots of opportunities to get out and do that as well. So that's the first and probably most important to do. But also, switching gears back to the fact that, we are business owners. It is January. We got a lot going on. We have our own finances we got to worry about. Tax time is coming up. What do we do now? So the first thing right now, we are T-minus 3 days away. And actually, I think it'll actually fall on Monday. So we might have a couple of extra days because of the fact that the 31st is on a Saturday. So that means you need to get your 1099s and W-2s filed. Your payroll service is probably doing your W-2s, assuming that you're using one. But your 1099s are likely something that you need to do. A lot of accounting softwares will do them for you. I do have a video that goes over this. So if you are curious more about whether you need to file a 1099, what the rules are, it gets complicated. I'll say that, in terms of how did you pay your contractors? What do you need to be doing to determine if your contractors do need 1099s or not? It can actually get very costly if you do not file them on time. So I highly recommend, if you have not done this, this is what you need to be focusing on today with your business, is watching that video and then figuring out, we have some recommendations in that video too about how to get your 1099s filed. Okay, so that's the first thing. And let's see, the next thing I want to talk about actually is, I've heard a lot of people talking about how this is the year that they really want to get their finances under control with their business. They want to get them organized. They want to make more profit. They want to be more strategic, all of the various different things. And so if that is you, I highly, highly recommend my book, Hidden Profit. It came out last October. It is a book published by Simon & Schuster. I'm really, really proud of it. I'm loving hearing the stories of those of you who have read it at this point. It's also available on Audible, narrated by yours truly. So definitely make sure to check out Hidden Profit. And we do still have bonuses available for those of you who purchase. So there are lots of great bonuses, including an awesome workshop I did back in November for planning for your year. So if you want all the tools that you need to plan your year in like an hour and a half, then definitely make sure to grab a copy and go to jamietrull.com/hidden profit to be able to claim your bonuses. So there we go. Make sure to have it. If you don't have it yet, make sure to grab the book, because now is a great time to be getting organized. Okay. All right, now I'm going to come on over to the cues section for our final section of the day. And here is where you're going to find Hidden Profit, jamietrull.com/hidden profit. Or you can buy it anywhere, any retailer you prefer. Okay. So the first question that I wanted to answer today was from Ed. I've been getting a lot of questions. I'll say this, a lot of questions about tools, specifically accounting tools right now, as people are looking to maybe switch the accounting tool that they're using for 2026, how they're doing their bookkeeping. And y'all, if you don't know, I have so much content on various different accounting and bookkeeping platforms on my channel. I actually did triple bookkeeping last year to be able to come and tell you about the differences between them. And so if you have questions about what's right for you, I'm going to get to what I want you to do here in a second. But first, I'm going to take this question from Ed. Ed wrote in and said he was concerned. So he wants to move from QuickBooks Desktop to Xero. And he was concerned about losing a lot of the data in there, including like the vendor payments and things like that in QuickBooks Desktop when he moves over. Now, there are a couple of things I'll say. If you're looking at switching from any system to another system, if you are worried about losing your data, there's a couple of different ways you can switch. Now, he has like 20 years of data, so it's unlikely that you would want to bring in 20 years of data. But you can, let's say you're going with Xero or FreshBooks, they have a way to do that transfer where they can do that on your behalf, and they can pull in at least some of that information for the last couple of years. Now, it differs based on which platform you're moving to and how they do that, but they can actually move over some of that information. It's not as easy as you might think, though. It does take time, and there can be things that go wrong because obviously those are fully their own platforms. And therefore, when you are bringing that data in, it's not going to be like an easy one-to-one transfer. I tend to take the approach, I like a clean start. When I switched, I actually did switch last year. Xero is what I'm using now, and I love it. But I switched from QuickBooks Online, and I decided to switch fully cleanly and start afresh. And just, you can enter your opening balances. I do have a video that talks about how to switch systems from QuickBooks to Xero. I also have one from QuickBooks Online to FreshBooks. And so, I like to kind of start fresh because it allows me to not have all the muckety muck of years of kind of adding different accounts and doing things like that. Like, I can actually start fresh and it can be a little bit cleaner. So I walk through how to do that. But if you do want to bring in everything and not, kind of have that clean slate, you can bring over the last couple of years by using one of their kind of, there's a third-party convert software for them that can help you do that. Now, what I will say though is, again, you're not going to be able to bring 20 years back. And even if you do use one of those, some of that information won't necessarily carry over. So while some of your transactions will carry over, if you're trying to have access, in his case, he was talking about vendor payment history, it may not fully carry over in the way that you would want. And if you're wanting to do research on previous vendor payments, things like that, what you want to do in that case, especially regardless of where you're moving from, do a backup. There are so many reports that you can back up your system to where you can have all that data, right? So if there are reports that you utilize, go in and save all those reports down for all the different years. It's going to take a while. It's going to be annoying, but that way you're not in jeopardy of losing your data. Now, when it comes to QuickBooks Desktop, so with QuickBooks Online, you get 1 year. Once you switch, once you stop paying for your subscription, you have 1 year guaranteed read-only access. You can, re-up at any point during that time. And again, like if you wanted to just re-up once a month or once a year and then cancel it right away, like it'll probably, I imagine, kind of give you a rolling year for QuickBooks Online specifically. QuickBooks Desktop says the same thing. But in my mind, if you download all of that, if you make a backup to your own computer, it's likely that you're still going to be able to access that for a while, even if you're no longer paying for a subscription-based desktop software. So I would do both. I would save all the reports you could potentially think you might possibly need at some point in time. And then I would save a, backup download offline of where you can log in. You're not guaranteed to always be able to log in. Eventually, they'll probably phase it out, right? But hopefully by that point, you may not need all of that information anymore, right? So hopefully that'll give you at least a little bit of time. And if you have all those backups that you've created from the reports that you've downloaded, then you should be in good shape. So that's typically what I recommend doing. People always ask me this question because they're like, I don't want to pay for this forever, but I'm not really using it anymore, but I want the history. Download it all, back it all up, download it all, and then you have it. And then you don't have to worry about what happens with the software in the future. It's just a good idea in general, because who knows, like if a company goes bankrupt, this happened with bench accounting, people couldn't access their files. They just couldn't, like one day, they just couldn't access their files, no warning. They just, the company shut down. Now they ended up finally getting bought and there was a whole thing with that. But for a period of time, right at the end of the year, those people could not access their accounting records. That is a problem. That is a big problem. So make sure you're always backing up and saving down reports and information that you need so that you don't run into that, because your accounting records are yours. You own them, but you do need to back them up. Okay. Now, another question, this is kind of a distilled question from a lot of the things coming into our inbox right now and things like that, is how do I know which bookkeeping system is right for me? I have made content on my channel about QuickBooks Online, Xero, FreshBooks, and just using a spreadsheet. I have a template that, is also potentially a good fit for people that don't, need a whole software and all the bells and whistles. So I get a million questions about how do I know which one of these is best for me? And that is why we created a new quiz. And I am so insanely excited about this quiz, y'all. Like, we just rolled it out last week. But if you are wondering what a good fit for you is, this is where you need to start. I'm going to show you really quickly the quiz, just so you can see what we did here. But the nice thing is that when you take this quiz, it is not just going to give you one answer. It's going to score how you score for each different accounting and bookkeeping type. So it's going to tell you not just what's the best fit, but it's going to tell you like what the, let's see, I'm looking for the page for it. Here we go. It's going to tell you how you score for each and every one of them. Here we go. All right. So when you go here, you're going to see, like, take the 3-minute quiz. We have the analytics on this. It's actually taking people less than 90 seconds. So we might change this to take the 90-second quiz, because that's how long it's actually taking people. It's 12 quick questions, but it will give you a score on which one is best for you. And it'll also give you resources for that specific one. And we have special deals as well that are behind this quiz. So even if you know which one you want to use, it might be worth taking the quiz to seeing what our special hidden deal is on those bookkeeping softwares. So definitely check that out. Again, like, this will help you determine if you even need a software or which one is best for you based on specifics about your business, because there are things I like about all these different platforms and methodologies. However, you don't want to pick the wrong one, because it may not have the capabilities you need, or it may not have the things that you prioritize, right? So those are a lot of the questions are around what do you prioritize. All right, so definitely go check out that quiz. I'm really excited about it. So far, people have really enjoyed it, and we've gotten really good feedback on it. So I wanted to roll it out to you all next. We're still kind of in a beta, mode with it, but I am very excited about helping people make some of those decisions and decide what's best for them, because we want to make sure that we're giving you options. We're not just talking about one software all the time, that we are telling you why certain ones have the capabilities that may be best for your business. So, all right, that's it for me today. Thanks everybody for being here. I know the subject matter was, a little bit touchy at times, and I appreciate being able to have kind of a discussion on this with all of you. And check out all the resources that we mentioned, and I will see you next month for our next Power in Numbers Live, and let's see if we shut down or not. What are your guesses? A yes or a no? Are we shutting down? We'll find out. We'll talk about it next month, I'm sure. Bye for now.